Hi, and welcome back to the Inside of My Head, where I'm going to look at IDW's comic book reworking of Beast Wars in the run-up to Rise of the Beasts. Beasts. There's quite a lot to get through, so make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell icon, as you don't want to miss part 2. There might even be a part 3, which I'm going to post in a week or so, nor do you want to miss any of the other stuff that I'm going to do in the run-up to this movie. So hopefully you guys checked out my retrospective look at Season 1 of Beast Wars that I'll link to below. Kind of an old vid now, but you know, still worth watching. I stand by it. Which started at the point where the Maximal ship and the Predacon ship came out of a portal in mid-battle before crashing on a prehistoric Earth. At this point anyway, not much is known about the events that led to this. It's mentioned somewhere that Megatron stole the disc and the Maximals pursued him to get it back, but in this Beast Wars comic by IDW, the events preceding this are looked at in a bit more detail. Straight off the bat, we get a couple of new female bot characters in Nyx, pilot who transforms into a bat that can of course fly and has sensitive hearing, and it was apparently designed to resemble Primal's original form that was canned before he was a gorilla, but was canned. We also have a new Decepticon called Scold, who transforms into a spiked shelled snapping turtle. But actually, she's pretty powerful. There's some gender politics bullshit surrounding this character, but you know, it's weird. It's weird for sure, but you know, we'll come back to it. There are some other new characters in here too, but they're introduced much later in the storyline, so we'll come back to them. As well as this guy. Oh, this guy. Right, so the whole thing starts with a heist. The theft of a relic, the golden disc that we not only saw in Beast Wars, but also in Cybertron Kingdom from the Science Ministry on Cybertron by a Decepticon called Galavar, who quickly announces that he's changing his name to Megatron. Like in Cybertron Kingdom, he explains that he's taken the name to honor his namesake, this mercurial figure from the past. So they get hold of the disc, and then to escape, they steal a transwarp-capable warship called the Darkside. They destroy many of the other transwarp-capable craft, so they can't be followed, and make their escape. Then we cut to Primal and Rhinox sparring it out on their ship, the Axelon, where Primal explains that he's newly promoted to the rank of commander and that their mission is twofold. On one hand, they're on a kind of a babysitting mission, floating in orbit with a cargo hold full of protoform pods and a skeleton crew. But while they're there, they have to run a bunch of tests and experiments on a transwarp drive that enables a ship to travel in time as well as through space. As the only transwarp-capable ship left in a position to intercept the Darkside, the Axelon is given the task of bringing them in. And we get a little cameo from Ironhide here, and a new look for him. And he looks alright, he looks okay, but it's kind of weird to see him bossing Optimus Primal around. And it made me wonder, well, who is actually in charge of the Autobots at this stage? Are we looking at Ironhide Prime? So the ships fire at each other, and the Axelon follows the Decepticon ship into a time rift that opens up. With their weapons disabled, not that it's particularly heavily armed anyway, the Axelon rams it, sending both ships out of control and careering towards this strange planet. As a precaution, the Autobots eject their protoform pod, and well, you know, you remember the show. And again, as with the show, they find that energon levels are so high on this planet that they need to modify their alternate modes and convert to techno-organic casings, which will stop them from overloading and dying. Their alt modes also give them other abilities too. For example, here Rat Trap talks about how he can taste things now. That's interesting. Then we meet these alien life forms. At first I thought they were indigenous to the planet, but one of them mentions that the presence of the Transformers might ruin everything they've been working towards. They can read Transformers' minds and see their memories. Anyway, one of them wants to kill them straight away, but they decide to leave them for now because they might be worth studying too. We find out later that they're a race of energy beings called the Vok, but I'll talk about them more later. Nyx goes out on a recon mission but gets shot down and captured, and it's here that the cracks begin to show in the Predacons and they start fighting. Surprise, surprise. And this all culminates in Dinobot helping Nyx escape. Dinobot defects, just like in the cartoon, but is promptly thrown into a holding cell where he tells Primal that it's honor that's more important to him than anything. Yay, Dinobot! He's one of my favorites. Now, although I don't hate what they've done with Dinobot here, I do prefer the classic look, and seeing this just makes me appreciate the fact that they didn't tinker with his design too much in Cybertron Kingdom. We get an even deeper insight into the mind of Dinobot when Nyx comes out of her coma, and they talk about how he believes the Decepticons to be a warrior caste, but are ultimately governed by honor. And if Decepticons let their baser instincts take over, they start squabbling amongst themselves and descend into chaos, like we've seen many times before. Then the Predacons attack, and Tarantula sneaks inside the Axelon to blow up the Maximal ship, while the other Predacons keep the Maximals busy outside. Poor Waspinator gets his arm ripped off, and Pterosaur takes this as the perfect moment to start monologuing about how he's going to double-cross Megatron and take command, but Nyx pounces on him and gets revenge for putting her in a coma. It's here that Tarantulas discovers the protoform stasis pod that the Axolon jettisoned into orbit earlier. And he's like, ooh, I could have my own private army. When Rat Trap turns up in a power loader of all things and throws his ass out. Get your ass out! So the Maximals scramble to get the Axolon shields operational, but because the shields are coded to Maximal signatures, the Maximals can shelter behind them, but poor old Dinobot gets left out in the cold and is surrounded by the Predacons before being stabbed in the back by Tarantulas. And I feel like they've made a little bit more of an effort here to make Tarantulas and Pterosaur into slightly eviler evildoers. They've turned their evil dials up a couple of notches at least. Waspinator's still the same. He's still kind of stupid. Anyway, the Maximals manage to chase off the Preds using the ship's cannons, and a damaged Dinobot is brought into the Axolon as a new member of the team. There's a really nice moment where Primal asks Dinobot if he knows the origin of the Dinobot designation and tells him about the savage but courageous faction of the Autobots that apparently disappeared at some point. Yeah, they don't really explain that. It's just like, yep, one day they disappeared. Meh. Anyway, he says he sees their qualities in him and that he'd be honored to have him become a member of the ranks. And that's where Volume 1 ends. Nice ending. So that's the first third of the storyline. And it's quite good as far as graphic novels go. It's essentially the same as the cartoon with a few bits expanded upon, a few other bits diverge a little bit. Again, a couple of new characters. If you're already familiar with the original Season 1, you're probably wondering whether there's enough new stuff in here. And there is just about. I didn't feel like I was just retreading the same old stuff, but all the new stuff that is in here is kind of superficial. The main skeleton of the story is kind of the same. But if you're somebody who doesn't know anything about the Beast Wars side of the franchise at all, this is a great starting point. Although you'll definitely miss out on David Kay's fantastic voice. Yes. I can't even do it. It's kind of like evil, but also like slightly campy. Yes. Please stop calling me your queen. Like, as I was reading this comic, I was hearing David Kay's voice as I was reading the Megatron bits. Like, there's the odd bits where there's just a yes put into otherwise normal sentences. Quite like what they've done with his robot form. He's kind of like a slimmed down version of what we saw in the cartoon. In some of the panels, he reminds me of Megatronus from... What was Megatronus in?
Stupid brain!
I think he looks cool. There's something not quite right about the alt mode though, and there's something to do with that jaw. Like, how big did they want to make that jawline? Yeah, sometimes he looks really herpy. Dino a derp, herp a derp, herp a derpy derper, what's that? But you know what? Beast Wars always did have a sense of humor. There were always jokes popping up at random places, mainly at Megatron's expense, and that's here too. So I think that this jawline thing is probably part of that. Oh, and another thing, like Megatron's got this rubber ducky at some point. This rubber ducky keeps popping up at random places in the comic. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Anyway, other than that, I feel like Tarantulas is much smarter than in the cartoon here. To my recollection, he was always kind of the equivalent of, Shockwave, the inventor kind of character, the engineer. But here, that's his first and foremost function. In the cartoon, you'll often forget this and he'd become just another Predacon, just another muscle, Also, I know this is repeating as well, but Pterosaur has been made that much more sinister now as well. Like here, he's more of a Starscream. As for the Maximals, it's all pretty much the same, except that, we've got this Nyx character thrown in there, who's fine, there's nothing wrong with her, but nothing exactly standoutingly brilliant either. Standoutingly is a word. But given the choice, I would still choose to spend more time focusing on Cheetor, Rhinox, and Dinobot. And Rat Trap, obviously. I definitely have some reservations when it comes to these guys, but like I said, they're going to come back and become more important later. So let's just save that for now. I'll sit on that for now. Now, in relation to Rise of the Beasts, this did start me thinking about who's actually going to get left out of that movie. The ones I really don't want to get left out are going to be T-Rex Megatron and Dinobot. Those are the two that are really going to hurt if it does end up that they are left out. But yeah, we just have to wait and see how that pans out. Okay, I'm going to start recording part 2 of this right now. So make sure to click all those buttons down below, the subscribe button, the like button, the little, the little belly thing. Just do all the clicking. And I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much for watching and cheerio, bye. I found the theme music again. I thought I'd lost it because I lost the hard drive, but I found it again. Yay.